explode on the scene with the guitars and Cadillacs.
It took 9 years before but I began to play the nightclub, and it allowed me an access point to take the kind of neo honky tonk that I was, because I never did the urban cowboy stuff. I got fired a lot to succeed, and it would resonate, and it did beyond.
If you're reading this, then the curtain's probably closed. These are the words from Dwight Yoakam's final letter, a deeply personal goodbye fans never expected to see. In it, he reflects on a lifetime of music, loss, and connection, leaving readers stunned by his honesty. Grab a seat, because his last words might just move you to tears. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. What set Dwight Yoakam apart wasn't just his voice, his songs, or even his unmistakable cowboy hat. It was the fact that he didn't fit neatly into the country music world he grew up loving. Born in Pikeville, Kentucky, and raised in Columbus, Ohio, Yoakam had an early fascination with country music. It wasn't the polished, radio-friendly version he loved, though. He gravitated toward the grittier, more soulful sounds of legends like Buck Owens, Johnny Cash, and Merle Haggard. These artists told stories that felt raw and real, music that spoke to the kind of struggles Yoakam saw in the people around him. As a kid, he might not have known it, but this devotion to storytelling and authenticity would define everything he did later in life. By the time he began chasing a music career, the country scene had shifted in a direction that left artists like Dwight Yoakam on the fringes. The genre was dominated by polished, pop-inspired acts whose music catered more to mainstream tastes. For someone like Yoakam, who wanted to capture the spirit of honky-tonk and the kind of emotion you might feel at a lonely roadside bar, there wasn't much room. But instead of giving in to industry expectations, he made a bold decision. He went west. Los Angeles wasn't exactly the heart of country music in the early 1980s, but for Yoakam, it represented something fresh. It was a city of reinvention, a place where he could experiment with his music and see how it landed. Little did he know, his move to the West Coast would end up changing country music forever. Breaking into the music scene as a country artist in LA wasn't easy. Early on, Yoakam took to playing punk and rock clubs, venues filled with audiences who came for something loud and unapologetic. Instead of changing his sound to fit in, though, he let his music clash against their expectations. And the surprising thing? It worked. People found themselves drawn to Yoakam's mix of honky-tonk roots and a punk edge he seemed to absorb from the city streets. That blend of influences wasn't deliberate. Yoakam wasn't sitting around trying to craft a genre crossover. Instead, it came naturally, a result of his own diverse tastes and refusal to compromise. When Yoakam released his debut album, Guitars, Cadillacs, etc., etc., in 1986, it was immediately clear he was doing something different. The album wasn't a flashy, overproduced statement. Its sound was stripped down, raw, and packed with emotion. Songs like the title track and his reworking of Honky Tonk Man resonated with listeners because they felt personal. Yoakam wasn't just writing about the highs and lows of life, he was living them, and it came through in every note. For fans, it was refreshing to hear an artist who wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, to write about heartbreak, isolation, and the struggle to find your place in an ever-changing world. The success of Guitars, Cadillacs, etc., etc. wasn't instant, though. It started as a sleeper hit, steadily gaining momentum as more people discovered Yoakam's sound and connected with his honesty. This slow build wasn't a setback for Yoakam. It was proof that his authenticity mattered more than the kind of overnight sensation many artists chased. Looking back, it's clear why the album resonated. Yoakam had a knack for capturing universal emotions, emotions people from every walk of life could recognize. Loneliness, longing, and heartbreak weren't limited to country folk, and Yoakam's music proved that fans craved authenticity over perfection. What's fascinating is how Yoakam's outsider status became his greatest strength. Where others tried to blend in, he stood out. His fight to stay true to himself created a deep bond with his fans, people who saw him as more than just a performer. For listeners on the fringes, whether they were searching for a new kind of country music, feeling disconnected from their own lives, or frustrated by an industry that didn't value uniqueness, Yoakam's songs were a lifeline. They gave everyone permission to embrace their differences, to see those differences not as barriers, but as bridges to deeper connection. And it wasn't just the music. Yoakam's story, an artist carving out his own space in an unwelcoming industry, hit home for so many people. His journey wasn't about success for success's sake. It was about creating something real. That's what made him so compelling. His belief that art could speak louder than trends or market demands. It's also what set the stage for his eventual evolution beyond music, something he never could have achieved without the connection he built with his fans. That connection made it natural for him to cross creative boundaries, and as you'll see, Dwight Yoakam wasn't content to let his creativity stop at country music's edge. What came next not only deepened his legacy, but also brought his journey full circle in a way nobody could have expected. Among Dwight Yoakam's treasured belongings, a letter was discovered. It wasn't polished or prepared for public eyes. It was deeply personal, written with the same authenticity that made his music unforgettable. The intimate nature of the letter, tucked away as if meant to be stumbled upon only when it was time, made its contents all the more powerful. Inside, Yoakam had poured out thoughts and reflections that seemed to serve as both a goodbye and an enduring message for those who had supported him throughout his life. It was the kind of unfiltered honesty his fans had come to love, now captured in words rather than in song. The letter revealed a man weighed down by his gratitude for the people who had filled his life with meaning. First and foremost, there were his fans. He wrote, "I just wanted to say thank you for letting me sing to you." It wasn't just a passing acknowledgement. It was part of a recurring theme in the letter, one where Yoakam made sure whoever read it understood how much their presence had shaped him. For Yoakam, fans were never numbers or faceless audiences. The letter went on to capture the role of family in his life, demonstrating how those personal connections inspired so much of his artistry. He spoke of his late mother, whose strength guided him and whose voice he described as the first he ever listened to with reverence. That acknowledgement was more than a fond memory. It was a way of showing how deeply his roots ran through his art. But it was his father, who did not live to see Yoakam's success, that lingered in his thoughts. The letter wasn't without hope, though. Its final lines encouraged his fans not to respond with sadness, but with celebration. "Don't mourn me with silence. Play something loud, something honest, and remember that I meant every word." It's hard to overstate how perfectly this sentiment captured the spirit of Dwight Yoakam. He wasn't asking for tributes or flowers. What he wanted was simpler, to remind people of the power of authenticity and to keep that spirit alive in their own lives. It was as if his farewell wasn't really goodbye. It was an affirmation of everything he stood for. Dwight Yoakam's life was never just about performing. It was about forging connections. Through his music, his roles on screen, and ultimately his final letter, he shared pieces of himself that felt undeniably real. That connection, built on honesty, resonated deeply with his fans, setting him apart in an industry often shaped by trends. As he once wrote, "Don't mourn me with silence. Play something loud, something honest, and remember that I meant every word." It's a challenge to hold on to what's authentic and meaningful, so honor his legacy, listen to something raw and true, because with Dwight, that's what always mattered most.